Hello and welcome to this Google App training video from OPSRC. Today we're going to talk about Google Classroom. And so we want to start with how do I get to Google Classroom and how do I get started. So if you are logged into Google Apps, and so if you're logged into your school's Google account, and if you're in the apps themselves, so if you're in Mail, Drive, Calendar, one of those things, then the easiest way to get to Google Classroom is by going up to the top right hand corner of the page and clicking on the Google Apps Navigator button right up here. And if I click on that, it opens up a bunch of different options. If I click on More down here at the bottom of this panel, you can see at the bottom I have Classroom as an option. So I'm going to click on Classroom. It's going to open up in a new tab. And so now you can see I have a couple of classes. But let's stop here, because if this is your first time to Google Classroom, this isn't what you're seeing. You're probably seeing something much different. If this is your first time in Google Classroom, you're most likely seeing a screen something like this. I have the Google Classroom icon. You can see that right there. And it says Classroom by Google, and if I scroll down, it tells me who I'm signed in as. I'm signed in as Indiana Jones, great professor, and I can get started using Classroom here. I need to choose whether I'm a student or a teacher. I'm going to choose teacher. Then it brings me to this screen, and if you have already been added to the teacher group at your school, this might be the screen that you're seeing. And so there's a Classroom teacher group, and if your Google Apps admin has added you, you're already here, and if they haven't, you can always contact them, have them add you. So now I'm to this screen, and I can begin to create my first class. So let's talk about all the pieces that come with Google Classroom. First of all, I do have my classes. We talked about creating those classes, so I can go here and create a class, and we're going to go through that step by step here in a minute. And you can see I already actually have one class created for myself now that I'm no longer Indiana Jones. And in the top left-hand corner, there's a hamburger menu, and these three lines that are stacked on top of each other. And if I click on that, it brings up the Google Classroom menu. So you can see if I click here, it's going to bring me back to this page, and it actually lists all of the classes that I've created or that I am enrolled in. I have a calendar view, and I'm going to click on that. It's not going to show you much because it's empty, but if I were a teacher or a student and were regularly assigning things for my classrooms, all of these things would be laid out here. All the assignments would be laid out here according to the day that they were due. So you can actually get a good overview of your class and what you've assigned and the things that you have coming in, and then a student can see this view and see what's coming up and where they need to prioritize their work. If I open the menu back up, you can see I can select work here, and it's going to show all of the assignments that I have created, and you can see it goes by all classes. I could choose just one class. I obviously only have one class that has been created, so it's showing all of it here. And you can see this is stuff that needs to be reviewed. One of the great things about Google Classroom, you'll see this when we actually jump into the class, is that I can get an overview really quickly of how many students have done the work and how many haven't done the work. You see, this is what it needs to be reviewed. And then if I've actually reviewed work and I've marked it reviewed, this is where it would be, so I can go back and see things that maybe I've already reviewed. I'm going to go back to the menu, so I have my classes, my calendar, my work overview. I can go to a classroom straight from this menu instead of having to go back home. I can also view archived classes. So when you're done with a class, you can archive it. It won't delete it, but it will save it in case you need to come back to it. You can view things that I've archived. And then I have settings in the bottom left-hand corner. If I click on my settings, there's not a lot here. It lets me change my profile picture. It gives me a link to my Google account settings. And then it also lets me change my notification. Am I going to get email settings or email notifications from Classroom? So let's go back home. I'm going to click on the hamburger menu, click home. When I'm here, if I wanted to create a class, all I would need to do is click the plus button. So I'm going to click on this right now. Now I can join a class or create a class. As a teacher, you're probably going to spend most of your time creating classes. If your school chooses to do professional development using Google Classroom, you might be joining a class so that you can do some of the required professional development that your district might have. So right now we're going to create a class. Creating a class is really easy. All I have to do is name my class. So I'm going to name this Biology 1. And then I would add a section here. And I can leave that blank. If you have a section, you can put some information in there. Under the name, the one thing I would recommend to you is, since each class gets its own Google Drive folder, you want to make sure that you're very specific in how you name your class. So if you teach 5 different sections of biology or 5 different hours of algebra, you might want to go ahead and name your class and be descriptive and use the hour. So Biology 1, maybe I would say, first hour. That way, if I have multiple biology classes, when I look at the drives and the folders in Google Drive, I can see them clearly delineated, so I can see the difference between Biology 1 first hour, second hour, instead of having just a bunch of folders named Biology 1. If I were to click Create, it would go ahead and open up the classroom. I'm not going to do that because I already have a classroom created. I want to open it up and walk you through the classroom step by step. So now that we're ready to walk through the classroom, you can see I have my class here. Like we talked about, each class gets its own Google Drive folder, so I can click on this folder and open the Google Drive folder for my class. And so that is an option for me. I can also come up here and click on these little 3 buttons or 3 dots on the top right hand corner, and I can rename the class, or I can archive it, which would remove it from this screen. But once again, if I come to the menu and go to archived classes, I could still get back to it. So I'm going to click on the name of my class to open it up, and you can see my Google Classroom. Now, once again, I got the menu up at the top left-hand corner, the hamburger menu. If I clicked on that, I could go back home, or I could switch between multiple classes if I had them. The top right-hand corner, it tells me who I am, who I'm logged in as. And then right up here, I can select a theme or upload a photo, so I can change how my classroom appears. So I'm a basketball fan. I'm going to go ahead and pick this and select that as my class theme. And you can see that the color of my class changes based on the photo. You can upload your own photo if you had a picture of your school or your classroom or some of your kiddos. You wanted to put that up there, you could do that. So that's this top header part. Also has the name of the class. Has me as the teacher. I've added a couple of co-teachers. I'm going to show you how that works and explain why you would do that here in just a little bit. But you can see that they're up there as well, Casey and Megan. And then if I scroll down, I've got a menu, and it's Stream, Students, and About. So that's how Google Classroom is separated into those 3 sections. We're going to start with the stream since we're already here. You can see on the left-hand side of the stream in the sidebar column, it shows all the work that's due soon. We don't have any that's due. We'll fix that here in just a little bit. You can see I have a setting here where I can show deleted items. So if I've deleted things out of my stream, I could click this over and it's going to show those again. And then at the bottom, we have a class code. Now, I'm going to show you how to add students here in just a little bit. But just like Edmodo or any other popular LMS that you might be using, kids can join a class and put in a code without having to be added by you or an administrator. And so that's where your code is if you needed to hand it out. You can see in the stream here some old assignments that I have created as I've done trainings at different schools. And so, and you can see how many students have done the work, how many haven't done the work, attachments, and we can have comments. We see due dates. Of course, these are all old from older trainings. But they're all listed here. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, I have a plus button. And so if I were to click the plus button, I can create an announcement, I can create an assignment, I can create a question, and I can reuse a post. And we're going to talk about all of these here in just a few minutes. I want to go through the rest of the Google Classroom just to show it off, and then we're going to get into creating an assignment, announcements, questions, and then we're going to show you the student view and what it looks like when a student opens assignments and then submits them back to you. So I'm going to go ahead and close out this menu by clicking anywhere. And then you can see here that was on my stream. Now if I go to students, that is the second section in the class. So if I wanted to add a student, I have my code again. But I can also invite students. Now this is going to vary greatly depending on how your school has set up your Google Apps. I'm going to click the invite button, and you can see it shows from my contacts. I can actually go to groups, and I can go to students, and I can see all of the students in my school, and I could select them and invite them to my class. Your school probably has something very similar where your kids are already listed, and they're probably already in groups, probably by graduation year. And so you could select, seniors or sophomores, whatever it is you teach, go through and select your kids, and then invite those students, and then they would get an email, and they could join your class. The other way to add students is to obviously hand out the code. They can go to classroom.google.com, just like a teacher can, and when they're there, they can hit the plus button in the top right-hand corner and put in a class code and join. You can see I have my students listed here, and there are 2 that have been invited and who haven't joined, and that's fine. And then I have a bunch of different, I have an actions button up here, and then I have a setting. This is the most important setting in Google Classroom, and I want to show it to you real quick. If I click on this, I have 3 different options. By default, your classroom opens up with this setting. Students can post and comment. Now what that means is back on our stream page, students can post announcements and they can comment. And so they can post and comment, and if you have the kind of students who aren't great with digital citizenship or just love being online and love to talk, your classroom can get out of control in a hurry. Okay, and so you definitely want to make sure that if you that you have this setting the way you want it. I know a lot of teachers who leave it this way because they want kids to be able to post. They like the conversation. They like the interactivity of it. But the one I recommend is students can only comment, because that means that I can post things and then they can comment. What you'll find is as I post assignments or as you post announcements, if kids have questions, they'll probably comment and ask a question, and the other students can answer those questions without you having to be directly involved all the time. It's a great way to have student conversations going on about any assignment or question that you may have posted. So there's that. You can also say only the teacher can post or comment. If you don't want your kids commenting or posting, you can change that setting. If I select a student, I get some actions here. It comes up. You'll notice next to each student's name, I also have an envelope. If I click on that, it's going to create an email for that student so I can email them. I can also quickly select all of my students, and then under actions, I can email them. So I can email my students in a group without having to create email groups in Gmail. And so this kind of speeds up the process of connecting with all my students via email. So if I want to send a class message out, I could select that, click email. It's going to open up a Google Mail compose box. I can type in my message and subject, hit send, my whole class will get it. I can also remove students if I wanted. Another great option here is mute. So if you do have where students can post and comment, or where students can comment and you have a student that is out of control, I can mute them so we don't have to hear from them. And then if I have a student leave my class, I can also remove them. And so that is my student section of Google Classroom. Now the third and final section of Google Classroom is the About section. And so in the About section, it allows me to do a few things. First of all, I have information about my class. I can put in a room number. I have a link to my Google Drive folder. If I have assigned things, I can view the classroom calendar, or I can actually open up a calendar in my Google Calendar that shows all the things that I've assigned and when they're due. Students can do the same thing. They get a calendar for your course so they can kind of keep up with what's going on in your class and what might be required of them. And so we have that. And then below that, I can add materials. So if there is a digital curriculum that I use all the time and I want a link to it, or if I've created a CK12 book with different PDF chapters, I can attach those here. If there's a series of YouTube videos that we're going to be referencing a lot, something from my Google Drive, I can add those things here, and students can always, if they don't want to go dig through their Drive folder, if they want easy access to things that they might have to reference all the time, I can put those here. And then in the left-hand column, you can see it's got me as a teacher, and it's a way for a student to click on that. They can email me, contact me. And then below, you'll see a couple of teachers that I've added. I can actually remove them from the class by clicking on these three little dots, but I can also invite a teacher the same way I could invite a student. I can go through select, or I can put in an email and they can get an invite. Once they're added to a class, it allows me to do a few things. And people ask, why would I want more than one teacher in one of my classes? One, it's great for mentor teachers, sharing with younger teachers. This is how I do my class. This is how I shape my assignments. Here's some of the resources I'm using. Feel free to browse through and pick things up and use them. A great way to share resources. If you've got a couple of teachers both teaching a certain subject or a certain grade, it's a great way to share things back and forth. The other reason that I would use this is if maybe I have kids who are on an IEP and they're a part of the special education program, and so instead of the special education teacher having to pick up the phone and call me and ask me about assignments that the student should be doing and what are the details and how does that work, I can actually add those teachers here, and then when that student comes in, they can log in and view the class and see exactly what the assignment was, what's being required, and what they need to do. And so it cuts down maybe the amount of phone calls and emails going back and forth, trying to figure out a specific student's workload or assignments. So those are my three main sections of Google Classroom. I feel like Google Classroom is a very straightforward learning management system, if you want to call it that. And so it's real simple, just three small sections there. And now I'm going to go back to the stream, and we're going to talk about what it looks like to add an assignment, and we'll show you the student view of what it looks like for them when you assign them something and how they interact with the work.